Okay, it's been a couple hours. The market's been open. Let's figure out what we got going on. See if there's any trade ideas out there. I'm going to get right into it. Before I do, though, I wanted to see if there's any interest in me doing a live chat or a live session, basically on YouTube. And what I was thinking is I would get on live and really just take subscribers' stock picks, and we just look through charts, analyzing what we see. And I'll just spend an hour basically going through and looking through the charts of the picks that people want me to look at. So if you guys are interested in that, I'll tell you what, I'd be willing to do that if I can get 500 likes on this video or some video in the near future. If I can get 500 likes on that, then I'll go ahead and set that up and we'll look at some charts. So getting right into it, here's the triple Qs. We're right there at this level of, I've had this level marked out for a while, but basically, yeah, so you can see it goes back to here. Basically at 293.03, we're right in that, we're above it. You can see on the hourly chart that we gapped up, we held, and so far still holding above it. Let's see how the day closes though. If you look at this is the hourly chart. If you look at the daily chart, you can see we're just right up there. This is really weak structure as well, how the market's been moving. This, to me, looks like a bunch of short covering. You have to realize we had a pretty good drop recently, and it looks like all the shorts covered basically in the last couple days. Again, that's why, a lot of my shorts that I pointed out over the last few weeks, I had covered them all, and I told everyone I was going to be pretty light into the elections, because you can get crazy things like this. And as you can see, we've just been gapping up and moving higher, gapping up. There's not too much movement today, but a lot of the movement's been coming in the gap. Pretty weak structure to just be moving up like that with huge gaps. I suspect these will get filled, but again, we could go higher. So I'm just kind of watching it, seeing what happens. I think we're going to break down today. I think this 293.20 area is going to give way. And then if it does, I'd be looking for these gaps to fill. Obviously I don't think we're going to fill the gap all the way down here today. That'd be a crazy move. But I could see us filling this gap from today. So I'm watching for that. I'll jump on that trade if it shows up. Just throwing out the bigger picture stuff. There's no divergences in the Qs. I don't see any, negative divergences or anything. Now, if we run up and make a new high anytime soon above this 303, yeah, it's about 304 basically, then we will, let me make sure I've got that right. Yeah, 303.65 roughly. Then that will put in a negative divergence on the daily chart. So that's possible, but we don't have that yet. Let's look at the SPY. Same thing, just big gaps and moving higher, just pretty thin trading. The volume has been, yesterday was relatively okay volume, not crazy breakout volume, but elevated volume. We're starting to see, a little more volume. Everybody's getting positioned, or trying to at least. What I see happening is we're positioning for inflation. That's what it looks like as of right now. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but there's a few things that I'm seeing. So SPY, again, let me look. I don't know why I don't have this level marked out. SPY's got, yeah, it's right about there. We'll just mark that. That's about the relevant level for SPY. And we're just slightly above it. So that is, I think we fill the gap, but again, we're still moving up. And you also can see we've got this uptrend like that. So I wouldn't expect a big move unless you break this trend line here. IWM breaking out above this 159.60. So you can see yesterday we came down, stopped right at support. Today moving higher. So the only way to read that is bullish. On the daily, we still have negative. This is a divergent high. Well, let me put that right. So here's the gap. I talked about this in a previous video, and the gap got erased. But I had this line marked out, and I thought, okay, we could maybe run up and fill this gap. And if we do it anytime soon, we'll put in a divergent high where we'll keep the negative divergence on the daily and put in a new divergent high as part of this pattern. So looks like that's what it's going to do, run up and fill that gap. It is a divergent high as of right now on the daily. You can see right here, let me get rid of this line. You can see that we're making just slightly new highs, but lower momentum. So I suspect this up move fades, but if we continue much higher, we'll burn through the divergence. So you want to, you have to see the RSI start to turn down before you can say that's a divergence. As of right now, it's just moving up. So it can continue to move up and then we burn through the divergence. You can see the PPO is kind of starting to turn up. Looks like we're about to get a crossover. So we'll watch, it either rejects here or moves higher and burns through the divergence. Until I see something happen, there's no trade for me on this one. PayPal here. Negative divergence is still there. We're still making lower. It's just extending this divergence essentially. We just got this impulsive move higher like the rest of the market. Again, I suspect we fill these gaps. This impulsive move to me looks more like short covering, not necessarily like buying. So I'm watching for, continued move to the downside in PayPal. Looking at the weekly, this is why I think longer term this thing's going to break, because you've got this negative divergence here on the weekly. That hasn't played out yet. So you can see, let me go ahead and clean this up here. You can see that we are, making lower lows in the momentum on the weekly, and yet price continued to make higher highs. So this is a divergent high, all this action. This tells me we're heading down, probably down to 139 and these levels down here. But it takes time to play out. This could chop around for a few more weeks, maybe make a new divergent high. On the weekly, this is longer term trade analysis. So you have to let these things kind of work their way out. And if you're trading the weekly, you get, I don't trade the weeklies, but I look at them to tell me maybe what the longer term direction is. This divergence tells me it's going lower. You can also see the bearish PPO crossover right here. See it where it crossed over. So that was the crossover there. So this looks all like a kickback rally and like we're going lower over the long term. Couple trades I'm keeping an eye on. TAN, there's nothing to do here, but there's a setup. It just has to, it's got a trigger. And the thing is that you've got big negative divergence here on the daily right there. If we run up and make a new slightly higher high, just above, 78, about above 77.70, a new high, that'd be a divergent high. So we're just watching right now. This is in watch mode where we wait for this trend line right here to break. Hasn't broke yet. The other day it closed right at support, so that was an objective area to go long. However, I don't go long when you have negative divergence. And this trend is really long in the tooth with negative divergence. That's not a long for me. So this to me looks like kind of the ending move where you get just people buying, the day traders jumping in, things like that. But I think I'm looking for the bigger move, and I'm looking for the breakdown of this trend line. I think it's coming. We have a bearish PPO crossover right up here. So we just wait. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing's down 10% tomorrow or here in the next couple days. But just a setup for now. Baba, all right, so this one started to break. I was going to put out a post this morning. Here's what I see, but it didn't look that impulsive, so I just kind of held off. Here's your uptrend line on the hourly chart, and you can see it here on the daily as well. Here it is on the daily. We just started to break the support line right there. So we were down all the way down here. It looked good. I was just about to put out the post, but I was kind of watching it to see how much follow through it really had, and there just wasn't really any follow through. So as you can see on the hourly, they've now brought it right back up and now they're chopping around this line. That's not the price action I like to see. I like to see if it's going to break, I want to see an impulsive breakdown. Now, it might still come today. We might still see, impulsive breakdown and selling, but it's just not there yet. So keeping an eye on this one. there might, I took a trade on it, and when I saw it start to recover, I covered it and pretty much broke even. There's just, it's not there yet. So we'll watch this. But again, if it wants to break below this trend line, right now the level, let me go back in. The level that we're watching is about 286.20 should be resistance, and we should see prices really start to move south of that level. So if not, and they recover that, then it's a false breakdown or a whipsaw signal. And then on the daily, you just won't have this breakdown. It'll be a recovery, and it'll just be a false breakdown basically. So again, that's why those impulsive selling is good. You want to see that because it really lowers the probability that you get a recovery of that breakdown, and then that puts the trend now bearish. As of right now, it's still too early to call. XLE still looks good. We're just kind of basing out, holding the same area. Hasn't broken out to the upside yet, but it's not breaking down either. So the downward momentum is starting to fade, which is shown to you right here in the bullish divergence on the PPO, or sorry, on the RSI and the PPO. So that's what we're seeing in price, and it's just gyrating, looking for higher prices, looking for 34.20. XOM, same deal. Sideways action, waiting for the breakout. Looks good. 41 is what I'm looking for on this one right there. Now that's a big move up. That's about 20%. I think the first stop is probably going to be around this 36.32. And CVX is the same. Still looks good. Here's the profit targets right there. Bullish divergence. So to me, I think this goes higher. Just has to take time. We could obviously go a little lower and tag this, the 69 area, kind of, bounce off of that before we move higher. You got to give it some room. Run here, doing a kickback right now. Right up into resistance. So I think that's a good area to take an objective short. I'll be probably taking a starting short on this because I haven't shorted this thing yet. I didn't short it on the breakdown right here. So looking for that. Again, this market loves to do back tests. I've seen it over and over and over. It's much more common in this market to get back tests of a broken trend line than it is to just see it completely collapse. So just keep that in mind. That's what I'm seeing, at least across a lot of these trade ideas that I'm putting out, is that we usually back test first before breaking down. Qualcomm looks like a good short right here. And this one I want to talk about in just a second. I want to do a little bit of a analysis here. I had a subscriber say that they weren't interested in taking my course because I was wrong on Qualcomm. And I responded and I said, I had my trend line marked wrong, but I was ultimately right. I didn't make money on the trade, so yeah, I was wrong because I lost money, but I was right to get out of the trade. So let me tell you what I had. So I originally had my trend line marked right here. This is the data points that I had at the time when I made the trend line. So I was looking at the daily. We were walking up the trend line like this. We broke, as I zoom in, we broke the trend line right here, and that's the data points that I had. We then recovered the trend line, and I got out of the trade because I didn't like that recovery. We then broke back down, and at that point I said, okay, this does want to break down. I was short. However, when I started to examine the price action after getting short again, it just was not moving down. It was just kind of chopping around slightly higher. I didn't like the price action, and so I put out in a video, I said, guys, I'm adjusting my trend line down like this because there's been a lot of reactions right here, and so I've got my trend. I feel like I have my trend line wrong, so I'm going to adjust it, and then I'm going to get out of my short position because we haven't broken the support when I adjusted the trend line. It's okay to do that. You can adjust trend lines when you get more reactions and more data points, and that's some of the skill set that I teach in my course. So yes, I was wrong and I lost money, but I lost 2% or about. I got short basically right here, covered it. I lost about a 2%. It was a 2% loss when I covered my short after adjusting my trend line. And then the thing gaps all the way up to, way up here, 14, 15%. So yes, I was wrong because I lost 2%, but I was right to adjust my trend line and get out of my short, realizing that my short was wrong and take action and get out. Now, no, I didn't know it was going to gap up like this. There's nothing that tells me that that's what it was going to do, but it did. But there was signs that I read that was able to say, hey, this short isn't going to, it's might not work. So because the probability doesn't seem to be in your favor, get out of it and wait for another opportunity. So yeah, the course does teach this. And yeah, I didn't get the call of a huge gap up right, but I also didn't get I also didn't take the huge loss from trying to take a short trade. Other people did. So now I'm short again on this thing, and let me tell you why. It gapped right to resistance. It's in an upward price channel. All right, so we got that. There's your upward price channel. And here's your resistance. I got the highs reactions up here. It goes right to here. We gapped right up to it, overshot it slightly, and now we're, kind of getting rejected right up in there. So I got short again, right at resistance. And we'll look for this thing to fade back down and gap fill or hit the bottom of the trend line. I don't know exactly what it's going to do. I do want to see it turn down soon. If you look at the daily here, the right here, you can see the RSI. We need to turn down soon in order to keep a negative divergence posture intact. If it doesn't turn down and goes slightly higher, we're going to get rid of that. It's going to negate that negative divergence, telling me that this thing is going to continue to move up within the trend. So yeah, shorting at resistance, that's objective. We do have negative divergence as of right now, but that could get negated. So it's not the best trade, but it's not too bad. We're at resistance and we have negative divergence, so there is potential. And so I took a starting short. I don't take, it's not the best trade, so I don't take a huge position, but I think there's potential for this to at least roll down into the gap, do some gap fill action, and profit on a short trade. So my course isn't about putting you on, my course isn't about saying, buy this now and you'll be profitable the very next day. My course is about recognizing trade setups, finding the trade ideas, and then managing those trades. Managing it means sometimes you're going to have losers, but being able to recognize those losers quickly and take small losses is all part of trading, and that's all taught in the course. So that's just a quick example. Moving on. Gold's breaking out today, and it's, this looks like the real deal. So this is one of the reasons why I see the market starting to price in some inflation and, a lot more money printing and stimulus. Gold's breaking out. I thought we were going to get down to 1790. I kept saying that. Here's why. We've got big major resistance right here going back in 2011, 2012, and we overshot it here. So I was looking for a retest of that level and then a move higher. So far, as of right now, it looks like they stepped in early and are starting to break it out. So maybe we move higher, a lot higher from here. I mean, it looks like it wants to. And that's, because we're in a bull market, maybe they don't give you the level that you're wanting, that perfect objective level. Now, I did have this trend line right here marked out. You can see it walking up. And we did tag that and hold support. I threw this area out right here because that is the forced liquidation of the pandemic selling. So I kind of threw that out, and more regular trading held this trend line. So I marked that out, and looks like we held that. So we'll see. You can also see some kind of bullish divergence right there where we started to build momentum. We've got a breakout. In general, looks good. So we'll watch. I didn't see anything in the gold miners, though, that told me that there was any kind of bullish momentum building. So I don't know if this is just sideways action or a false breakout. I don't know. I just didn't see anything in the miners. So I'm going to keep an eye on it, maybe start to focus a little bit more on these gold miners again to see if there's anything, if this has legs or not. And if the market wants to break higher, then maybe this Joe's going to go higher. So I got this level right here at 32.38. We have a bullish falling wedge with bullish divergence right here. So looks like it's starting to break. I'd like to see a break above this 32.40 level. That's where you have this gap back here. But this is coffee ETN, a couple of the ag commodities. If gold's starting to break out, you should see oil and the ag commodities start to break out as well. So keep an eye on this one. Maybe there's something there. Zoom, and we'll wrap up here. Zoom is right at resistance. So you got this trend line right here. We were walking up it. We sold off. That was a good spot to cover down here. And then we're doing a back test of that broken trend line. Right now, we're just kind of chopping around the level, but I suspect we get rejected here. And then we start to head down towards the bottom of the channel around 400, 410, 415, depends on when we get there. And that's the next stop for Zoom, I believe. So that's all I got, guys. If you find some value, leave me a thumbs up, and we'll catch you on the next one.